Hello and welcome to another Pish Patter About Games episode. This time we're taking a look at Doom from 1993 in the build up to the launch of 2016's new version, which is also called Doom. So over the next couple of weeks, or next few weeks, me and Liam will be looking at a lot of id's output over the years, focusing mostly on Doom and Quake. Liam's going to look at the Quake side of things, and I get the pleasure of looking at this beast. So if you don't know what Doom is, I don't know where you've been, hiding under a rock or something like that. It's the father, really, of modern first-person shooters. Now, obviously Wolfenstein came before this, and that is really, that laid a lot of the foundation for Doom. Another brilliant game, but it was after Doom that really the first-person shooter was properly born, and it wasn't even called the first-person shooter. It was actually called just a Doom clone. So that's the sort of influence it had. When it launched, it actually didn't even really launched to great critical acclaim, but its influence is still felt today, definitely. So I went back and played this. I got the Doom 3 BFG edition on Steam. I highly recommend everyone gets that. It's like 20 quid and you get Doom 1, 2 and 3, all the kind of expansions, and it still plays brilliantly well. It hasn't aged a day, honestly. The enemy design is great. The level design is superb and sometimes just so huge. You know, it's so surprising that they managed to pack all this into a game that nowadays is smaller than most websites. And the difficulty level, of course, infamous. You'll be able to see from the clips a few points where I was in a bit of trouble. But yeah, I really enjoyed it, and we wanted to kind of go back and look at these original games ahead of Doom coming out. We're both big Doom fans, big id Software fans in general, and we wanted to kind of go back to the roots and have a play, and I'm really glad we did, because like I say, it's just like playing a new game. It was such an enjoyable experience. I managed to beat the game, which I don't think I did when I was young, so that was a bit new, but just some of the stuff that's in here really way ahead of its time. Things from splash damage from explosive barrels, causing chain reactions with other barrels. These are things that you take for granted so much now, but real achievements back then. You've also got things like enemies attacking one another, and you'll see a bit coming up later where I should really have been using the enemies against each other as a kind of a gameplay technique, and that is really miles ahead of its time, and a lot of games even nowadays still can't kind of get that right. You know, obviously the game is a few years old now, originally released in 93, although the retail version wasn't until a couple of years later. The original came out as a shareware version, and so, you know, there are elements of it that haven't aged as well. Obviously it looks pretty dated, although still looks okay. Enemy AI in other respects, like pathfinding and things like that, and how they kind of follow you around or whatever, is a little bit dodgy, but again, just a kind of a function of being a game in that time. And some of the levels are just so brutal. But yeah, I mean, overall it still holds up so well, and I think one of the things that really has held up the strongest throughout is that tension. I remember when I was a kid, and if you didn't have the night vision goggles and you were the kind of dark room bit, I just shit my pants. Just couldn't handle it. Had to get sometimes my auntie, I think it was, that would come around and she would have to complete a level for me. Getting your auntie to complete Doom for you, that's shocking. But no, it still has that, you know, when you've got a bit of health left and you've got an area to get through. This part of the game was absolutely brutal. I remembered this from when I was young. I didn't remember how to do the next area, which would have helped me in this part. But yeah, this bit was a real challenge. But it's like anything. It's like any kind of game. It's fair. You learn the patterns of the enemies. You learn kind of where to lead them, how to kind of take them one at a time, and you get through it. It was never, even when I was playing it now with a kind of more of a sort of, I suppose, for want of a better word, educated in how game design works and things like that. Um, I didn't feel like any of it was cheap or that the enemies were particularly overpowered. It was just you had to be patient. You had to play it and really practice it. But back then, I mean, that's what you did. You got one game. Maybe, I mean, when I used to play games on my old Windows PC and Mega Drive and things like that, you maybe got one game for 3 months, and that's all you had to play. And you either beat it or you didn't play it. And that was the case with Doom. And I think nowadays it's very easy to just move on from one game to another, but Doom made you really work, and it still made me work very hard to get through it this time as well. You're seeing me kind of just wander about this room. There's a chainsaw, absolute classic memory that. But the next area here, this is where I opened this door and I'd completely forgotten. I was like, came in here, and then I remembered, oh, this place is like, this is literally hell. And what you can actually do, if anyone doesn't know, you open that door when you've got those 4 immensely powerful guys on you. They go in there, and there's a big Barney, and they end up taking half those guys down for you. And they're thinking about that now. That's the sort of thing that we praise Dark Souls and other games of that for. That kind of allowing you to use the enemies against each other, use what you've got at your disposal. And doing this, God, however long ago, since 1995, 1993. So I mean, that is just so impressive, and I think it points to just the level that the guys at id, Carmax and Romero were operating at back at the time. Because I mean, it really is very impressive looking at it now. So I mean, I don't know what other people's Doom memories are, or I suppose it's just those old gaming memories of the kind of early to mid 90s. Maybe one of your pals had a PC, or one of them had a SNES, something like that, or a NES. So you might not own a game, but you got to play a lot of it. I was lucky enough that I owned Doom. In fact, I've owned all the Dooms. But you used to have about 10 kids from the street come round. I'm describing this like it's some kind of Victorian kind of ancient history. This is the 90s in Glasgow, so this is I suppose it's not that far apart, but all the kids used to come round, and you just play that kind of pass the pad. One of you dies, that's it, move on the controller, and you just all die at the same bit 100 times, and then get really frustrated and go home. But it was good. I suppose quickly before we run out of time, it is probably worth talking about the weapons. I mean, they shaped a lot of the first-person shooter kind of arsenal for years. I had my favourite, which was the shotgun. Also my favourite in the new Doom beta. Brilliant fun. A lot of people liked the chain gun too as well. But then you obviously have the BFG too, which unfortunately I didn't get any footage of. But I got some rocket launcher footage, which was absolutely necessary to take down this bastard. And you can see I got a wee rocket in my face for my troubles. But great weapon design in terms of where and how you could use them. It wasn't a case of just pick the next one up and run in. You had to think, oh, next room could have this big bastard in it, better save my rocket launcher for him, or am I going to just expend the ammo now on this kind of guy and then hope that I pick up some more later. So you had to think, and it's not a big decision now, it's something that you take for granted, but when you were a stupid kid it was the biggest thing in the world basically. And speaking of big deals, so you finishing this game, nobody, when I was not among my friends, nobody was finishing this without some serious help. So when that kid came to school and was telling you, oh, I beat him, no bother, no blah blah, cheating bastard, God mode, whatever he was doing, he had something on that wasn't right, because as you all are no doubt aware, I'm brilliant at games, and I died at this guy about 200 times. So it just goes to show you can't trust anyone when it comes to gaming. I fucking killed you, finally. Right. So after you do that, you've got the end sequence of this. This is the kind of the third episode, and you've beat that big guy. Tell you what though, there's hell. We jump in. Because I mean, that's basically all the story was in Doom. I think the story was written in a booklet, which I never even had. So as far as I was aware, you just started off somewhere and just were shooting guys for no reason. Um, but then, turns out there's some teleportation malfunction, as usual, and you have to just go to hell and kill everything in hell. All in a day's work for Doom Guy. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys, and I'll catch you next time. Doom 2. Bye.